Thanks for
Hi,
calling me, Aaron.
Lola.
Hi.
Yeah. Hi. Well, let me start this off by saying that I love you, and I'm obsessed with everything that you do. And so I feel blessed to know your work. I feel blessed to get lost inside of your worlds. And just and to know you and to call you a friend. So
that's so incredibly kind. I mean, I feel the same about you, so I am equally as blessed to know you and have my paintings around you and your life and your family.
I have your paintings on every wall of my house. And a couple of my places, and I just am so happy every time I walk by and see one of your pieces, and be able to share it with people that come into my home and talk about you and your work and how we met. And do you remember how we met?
Yeah, it was so weird. I remember I had just moved back from England, me and my family, and I had set up a sort of a pop-up show with my manager, Bill Foltz, who's also my dear friend. And we set up this gallery. I had worked on all the paintings in England and shipped them over, and it was probably the worst time to have a show in December, like right before Christmas. And I remember Jason Welsher, who was managing everything at the time, said, "Hey, I got this message from some guy named Aaron Paul. He wants to come in and see your paintings." And I was like, "Wait, the Aaron Paul?" He's like, "I don't know. I said, who else is named Aaron Paul? There's no one else." And you came in, and God, I was so nervous. I mean,
I came in, and I was driving back from Vegas, and I was desperately trying to make it home in time in order to go see your show. I saw a painting, about your show. I'm such a huge art lover, art collector. I'm always looking for new artists to just fall in love with. And anyways, there was this painting, Book Soup, that drove me to this gallery. And I went into the gallery, and I went by myself. My wife was exhausted, and so I said I'm going. And I stood in front of Book Soup for God knows how long, and I was able to meet you and some of your friends, and sadly the painting had sold, and then somehow I go back, I think the next day or a couple of days later, and I stare at the painting again, and I can't get over it. And then somehow you worked your magic, and I was able to purchase that painting. And so that was my first painting. For people that might not know it and why I sort of fell in love with your world, they're so unique and they're so Lola, When I see a painting of yours in a group of paintings, I can always point out, oh my God, that's Lola. You have a very,
I love that.
very specific look. All of your characters within your pieces are very much the world that you invented, you created. And so it's of a young classic Lola creation, this young girl wearing a devil's costume, sitting in a bathtub with a miniature Spock and a little hammerhead shark, and she's reading a book. How the hell did you come up with wanting to put that on canvas?
Well, that show was called The Younger. It was painting from that show. And I think there was quite a few paintings, maybe 20, 22, somewhere around there. And the whole premise of that show was to reacquaint myself with childhood memories. And so I was thinking for that painting, a significant time in my life is when I was really young and I watched the movie Jaws, which I want to say I was probably 8 or 9 when I saw it. So really too young, I think, for myself because of my imagination, but terrifying. And I was scared to go in the tub. I was scared to sit on the toilet. I was scared to swim in a pool because I just was convinced Jaws could be anywhere. So that was kind of my joke about that painting is the silliness of how our imaginations can take us somewhere, but also, you know, these things are important. They mold who we are, these things that happen in our early lives. And that's really all the work has been about that. But I think that show in particular was such a sweet show. It talked a lot about all the good memories that I had.
Oh my God. I love it so much. So, I mean, I know, you know, we're sitting here talking and, you know, we're celebrating your new show, this massive, beautiful show that I felt incredibly honored to have a sneak peek at before the images were put out there into the masses. And I am lucky enough to have picked up a couple of beautiful paintings from that show. So congratulations.
Thank you.
It's just yet again such a beautiful example of your, you know, magical work. It's titled Intimate Flowers Bloom. So what does that title mean, and how does it represent this newest show?
Well, I love the title. It can really help with the imagination for anyone looking at the work. But I think it's the best way to describe it is it's part of my long quest to understand people and relationships and connections with people. And there's this David Hockney quote. I'll try to get it correct, but it really sums up me as a person and how I work. It goes something along the lines of, nothing really goes away until it has taught us what we need to know. And so I work in this sort of perpetual loop to try and understand human connection. And it's all derived from my early life experiences, why I'm the type of person I am, the way I was raised. I had a really strict mother at the time, who's amazing now. But when I was young, she was very, very like, you know, you do this, you do that, don't step out of the lines. And then I had my brother was the exact opposite, who was very chill. He loved watching cartoons with us. He was sort of like a kid himself. And then the third really magical component of my childhood was my grandparents were toy collectors, and they had unlimited amount of vintage toys, unique toys, really rare stuff. And it sort of came because they were obsessive compulsive collectors, but they also, I think, when they first started, they had a dream of opening a toy store. So they had multiples of these amazing toys, things that my grandma actually still has today that, I don't know, I think because I spent a lot of time with her, I was constantly in this imaginative state, and I sort of developed the way I am now through that. So I had, you know, because of my strict upbringing, I was isolated a lot, and I spent way more time with toys than real people. And I also, for whatever reason, we changed schools a lot. I would only be in a school maybe a year or 2 years or, you know, maybe 3 years tops, and then we would change schools. And so I never had really close bonded friendships. I was always having to reinvent myself or, I don't know, like get into the mix of people that had grown up together. So I'm always trying to figure out connections of people, you know, how we work together. Why are we attached to each other? How do we work? The way we treat each other. And that's always like the foundation of my work. So for this show, I was going through some experiences with a longtime friend who, for whatever reason, I saw the signs early on that it wasn't mutual, and I had a sort of an unconditional love where there was an agenda on the other side, and it was all coming to head around the time that I was doing this show. So I really did use this show as, I don't know, as a therapy, as it always is, but to try and figure out, understand where she was coming from, and also understand where I'm coming from and why I do the things I do. So it's really, for me, it starts as I'm working through issues of my own or situations, and I conjure up these ideas, and I eventually attach them to what's happening, but then I have to let them go, and then it becomes, this is for someone else to see, and I've now fulfilled what I needed to fulfill, and it's now out into the world, and hopefully someone can get something from it that's either gone through something similar or even not, having their own explanation for it, which I really love. I love to hear what people think about it before I can even, I don't really want to have to explain to them. I'd really love people to open up their own imaginations from these pieces.
Yeah, and you absolutely allow that to happen with each and every one of your pieces. Like this one piece, I think it's titled "Put a Fork in It."
Yes.
That room reminded me of my grandmother and grandfather's second story in their house. There's just a set of very thick carpet stairs, a very thin stairway going up into this pointed, almost like attic bedroom. I would spend so much time in that room, and it does make allow your imagination to just run wild,
and so that you're able to attach your own recollection or some sort of a memory or whatever, and carry that and make it your own, and you see it and it reminds you of that, and it's a good feeling.
Yes, and there's also a single bow tie pasta floating, and I love pasta, and it made me happy. It was just such a random, beautiful. It's just so beautiful. Your worlds. So much that I want to talk to you about. Well, speaking of your worlds, this kind of goes into what you were just talking about, sort of moving around a lot and not really having a strong set of, core friendships. I can absolutely relate. My parents never owned a home. We always rented. We moved around at least every other year, it seemed.
Oh, wow.
In high school, I think I lived in 2 or 3 different homes within the same school district, and so I stayed at that school, but we just always moved, which I thought was so odd. I don't know what really was going on.
Right? Were the houses better and like more functional, or was it?
They kind of felt a little the same. Some had bigger yards, some didn't. Some was a little more spacious, some weren't. But we just kind of moved around a lot. But it's all I knew, right? So it just felt very, very normal. But let's talk about your world. Have these characters and their worlds been swimming around inside of your head for a long time? And do you remember a painting that you did that sort of changed the way you sort of saw your work and the direction your work was heading?
I don't know. You know, what's interesting, I can't really pinpoint, but I know that when I had first started my career, the economy was in a different place, and I was a young single mom, and I had little kids, and I was creating these paintings, and galleries were very, like, I need it, I gotta have it, and paintings were selling. Like, everything I put out was selling for whatever reason. I couldn't figure it out, but I know it was a timing thing, and so I was creating these worlds that were very youth, like young-minded, because my life was my kids. And so I was in this headspace, and I think also too because my father, you know, brought us around a lot of cartoons, and we read bedtime stories, and so my inspirations were illustrated books and things like that. So my mentality was, I'm going to create paintings that I would imagine seeing in a book. And then I got to a point where I feel like I had created so many paintings in this style, and I thought, you know, I really want to experiment now. I'm ready for that phase. Whatever it's going to be, I don't know, but I just want to try to figure something out. I want to push myself a little bit more. And I remember specifically the gallery I was showing with at the time had said, oh, no, you can't change your style because your collectors will leave you, and you have to be known for this one thing. And I guess the rebellious part of me was like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to grow. I want to start painting things that I know I can't paint, but I want to figure out how to paint them. And I think that was probably around 2012, because I had started painting in oils, just as, like, you know, using a different paint technique. That for me, because I'm self-taught, I just really didn't know what I was doing. I knew a change was coming. So I don't know. I can't really pinpoint a specific painting. I think probably the entire show that you were talking about with Book Soup, that was probably the jump-off point to changing the way I work. I liked, before that, I was sort of inventing these stories, and then, so I'll put this here, and I'll bring this in, and this will be looking at this. And then I just decided I don't want to work like that anymore. I'd rather have a more natural, uncontrolled painting come about and just see what happens. Like, if I don't think about it, just see what happens. And actually, like, today I feel like I'm probably in the best control of that uncontrolledness. Where I will just randomly and subconsciously capture these images, things that I see or things that I hear, and I'll sort of digest them down and then let them come back when they're ready. And sometimes it happens really quick, and I'm like, oh shoot, I don't have paper. I have to write this down, and it'll get lost. But a lot of times things are so striking to me that it's just implanted, and I'm like, okay, I just got to figure out how this certain image will play with something else.
Now, when you say you're going to write some, sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. Yeah, like, not necessarily write, but I will scribble.
Like doodle it?
Yeah, like doodle it.
Quickly, got it.
Yeah, as quick as possible, just so that I don't forget, because sometimes I've come up with the most seemingly amazing ideas, and then I'll go about my day, and then the next time I'm like, oh, what was that? I don't completely forget it. And that's just a part of it, I guess. If I'm not ready, just, you know, it'll come through me, and I have to be ready, or I have to let it go.
Yeah.
It's a weird way to work, but I really love it. It keeps me on my toes, and I think it's the most genuine. Like right now, I feel like I'm painting the most genuine I've ever painted. I'm not pushing it. I'm not even letting these things that, you know, psychologically or therapeutically, which I need, I'm not letting those dictate the work. I'm just taking this very subconscious imagery and letting it sort of put itself together And then as I'm painting it, the more personal stuff starts to come out, and it almost sort of helps it to bloom, as if in the title. It just comes about, it just evolves naturally. So I'm really having a lot of fun with this.
Well, I mean, it really comes across, you know, in your work. I mean, when I was first introduced to your work, I, of course, was blown away, but you just keep evolving as an artist. And I don't know how you do that, but you do. And I love it so
well,
much.
I feel like because I'm self-taught, I have this natural competitive nature inside of me that says, okay, you did that, but can you do this? And so I'm always trying to find things that almost are seemingly impossible, like the glass paintings, which sometimes I go into a trance. I don't really know how. I know when I started, I'm like, yeah, this is going to be so great. And then there's this whole middle period, which is the whole period of painting it, where I'm losing my mind, I'm getting headaches, I'm going cross-eyed, trying to figure this stuff out. But somehow I do it, and I'm like, oh, yes, finally.
Yeah, you do that. I mean, you're kind of playing with glass and with fire, and it just is, it's so beautiful to sort of kind of watch you continue to explore and grow as an artist. So how hard is it? I mean, I'm assuming you work on multiple pieces. I've been to your studio. You work on multiple pieces at once. How hard is it to complete a piece? I mean, I used to paint every single day, and for me, it felt impossible to say goodbye to a painting. It felt like it was never done. I mean, do you ever have that issue, or you? I used to terribly, but
really,
it was very therapeutic. It just, I just loved creating worlds. I mean, I've always loved to doodle and just get my hands dirty with just different mediums, but just continuing to kind of scratch at that.
I love that. Do you have any of your old work?
I always give them. I always give them away. I mean, my family has my pieces hanging up in their walls, which is very sweet. I don't know if they just put it on a nail, like when I come over, and it gets hidden away. I'm not sure, but yeah.
Oh my gosh! I have to see some of this. I'm interested to know.
I will have some of my siblings take some photos, and I'll send it your way.
That is brilliant. I love it.
So is it hard for you to complete a work, or are you thrilled when it's done? Do you know instantly when it's done? I see, like, when you put your the final glaze over it, it must be so satisfying.
Yeah, it's weird because I honestly don't feel like I've ever really finished anything unless I'm doing something for myself, which I used to do back before it became my career. But it's really hard to get to that end point because I always feel like there's something missing, or it could keep going, or maybe I didn't paint this thing well enough, but there's a deadline, so I have to just let it go. Yeah, I never really feel like I've finished anything, and I think that's why, well, it's one of the reasons why I work on so many pieces at once. There's obviously the dry time for the oil paint, but secondly, I get to these points where I'm stuck and I don't know what to do. So I'll set the painting aside, I'll let it breathe, and I'll look at it. And sometimes I won't look at it. I'll say, okay, I can't even go there right now. But it will come back to me in its own time. And like, especially for this show, some of these paintings I started in 2017.
Wow.
Right after my last show at Mary's Gallery, I was like, I've got all these ideas, I'm going to get them started. And then they just they just stall. And I'm like, okay, I don't know where it's going, so I'll just let it sit. But yeah, 3 years, sometimes more. I mean, it just
Well,
depends.
hey, if you ever have any, unfinished work that you want to just get out of your space, I'm happy to hang them on my walls. That's actually one of my favorite shows I've ever seen. It was called Unfinished. It had
I
work
didn't get
from.
to see
Did you see
that.
it?
No, I
Yeah,
didn't get to see
from
it. I didn't.
Rembrandt and Picasso, Monet. It's just so beautiful. And for
It
anyone
is, because then you can kind of see the process.
yeah,
You can see the
everyone
brush
has their own
strokes and the
different.
underpainting. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love
There's
that.
this
That's
there's
such a
this
great.
beautiful painting of is a portrait of this girl and her dog. She's in a big beautiful dress. But the story is she broke the artist's heart. I think maybe cheated on him, and he just scratched out her face. And the painting is gorgeous, but it's just, the face is kind of smeared out. Anyways,
That's brilliant.
do you know that story of the guy that was arrested at a museum for painting on a painting?
No.
Did you ever hear about that?
Mm-mm.
This person kept going back to this museum and staring at this one particular painting, and one day he snuck in paints and started painting on it, and he was arrested, and they learned that it was a painting of his that he just it was driving him nuts. A piece of the painting just felt unfinished, and so he decided to work on it again.
That is brilliant. Oh
yeah, I wish
God,
I knew.
I
should have. I didn't know I was going to talk about this, but I should have done some research on who the artist was. I'm sure you can look it up and figure it out.
Yeah,
But
that is brilliant.
it's so funny.
I mean, I relate to that. I feel like I could go to your house and look at old paintings and be like, you don't mind if I just touch
yeah,
this
and I was
area,
just going to say, do you ever feel that way when you're coming to my house? And
Totally.
I mean, be honest. Are you a little creeped out? Literally, when you come into my house, every wall there's your work, and then you go into my bathroom. There's like a sketch of yours. So I'm like, it's just literally everywhere you go.
No, honestly,
okay.
I am incredibly honored, because even before I met you, I was a fan of yours. I think you are extremely talented. You're a genius artist yourself. And when I see my paintings on your wall, I'm like, is this for real? This cannot be for real. And especially too, because I think one of the most important parts is when you're finished and you sell your work and you hope that it goes to a place that it gets new life. And so I know in your home, you have these amazing gatherings and you have friends and they play music and people are exposed to it. And I'm just like, it's giving me back tenfold, It's really surreal to me that these paintings live with you. It's so cool.
I
love it. I love it.
I can't begin to tell you how obsessed I am with all of them. But you haven't been to our new house, right?
No, we did. We came.
Of course you did.
Yeah, right when you were releasing Dos Hombres into the world, we came and had a beautiful afternoon with you. Yeah.
Yes, we did.
And I spent a lot of time indoors, like looking at my paintings, because they feel like they were meant for that home. I know it probably sounds cheesy, but they really fit so beautifully.
Well, it's so perfect. There's a painting that I got of yours called A Simple Song, and it's of one of your classic characters, this boy playing a piano, and this oversized girl just laying down. I mean, she's just large in frame. She's laying her head down on the piano listening to a song. And it's right above our fireplace. And like you mentioned before, we do these music gatherings. And this painting was meant for this cabin that we were building at the time. This was, years ago. And when we got it inside of our house, I couldn't bear not to look at it every day. It has to be here. So it's above our fireplace, and hopefully in the future people will be playing in front of this fireplace with that simple song painting, just above their heads. It's so perfect. But thank you. I love you.
Well, thank you.
So who, if any, who's inspired you on your journey in becoming an artist? Do you have a favorite artist, alive or dead?
Yeah, I do. When I was young, I was really, my imagination started with children's books. So, Dr. Seuss, Mercer Mayer, things like that. And I really thought about things in a very illustrative way. So my older works were in that sort of same archetype of playful children, outlined, sort of silly. And as I got older, I was actually, before my career really took off, I was thinking, I'm going to be a tattoo artist. And I had gotten an apprenticeship.
Really?
Yeah. I'd gotten this apprenticeship with a friend of mine, Fabian EFC. And I learned how to tattoo from him, and I started working. And when I was there, he had this amazing collection of art books. And so when it was slow, I would just go through his books. And I think because my lifestyle was so, I don't know, I was so naive, and I was more into music and not really art. I was only creating stuff, but I was more a music person. And I wasn't really exposed to art. And he had these books, and I remember picking up a Salvador Dali book and thinking, oh my God, okay.
Yes.
All right, this is art right here. This is insanity. And I started checking out books from the library, because again, this was before Google days. This was sort of the late 90s. And I was looking into him, and I was looking at Magritte, and I was looking at Dorothea Tanning, and all of these surrealists, and finding, okay, this really syncs with how I'm feeling, and I can envision creating this way. And so I spent a lot of time painting in that sort of surrealist, typical surrealist setting, and then just sort of expanded it to make it my own. And then later, when I was in my 30s, I had actually never been, step foot into a museum. I never really traveled. I didn't have much life experience. Yeah. I'd only seen things from books. Again, I never had any art history classes.
Right.
I was never really informed. And so I went to England for the first time in 2010. And I went into the National Gallery. And right then and there, I was like, okay, again, this is a whole other world, right?
Yeah.
You see these paintings, and you can transport yourself to that time, and it's so emotional to see these paintings that you only see in books, and then to have them in front of you, and you can see the texture, and you can see the color palette, and I don't know, it made me, I think like you were saying earlier, you can just stand in front of a painting. I would just get lost. And so I started loving these Dutch painters. I really gravitated towards that era, and I wanted to perfect my technique and make things tight. And I'm already sort of an obsessive compulsive painter, so I was trying to take what I could see from them and figure it out for myself. And then there's one more who's a living artist. His name, I'm gonna mess up his name because it's German, but his name is Neo Rausch. And I can't say it in German. Rausch.
I thought it sounded great.
Yeah, thanks. But he's also, he's a living master. His worlds are beyond anything. And I don't know if you know of him, and if you don't, I highly recommend you look him up because I think you will fall in love with his paintings. But he's another one of those artists who lets his subconscious sort of dictate what's happening, and it's all sort of intertwined in his upbringing, and he creates these beautiful, masterful stories, these narratives that are beyond what anyone's doing. And so I think seeing him as well sort of, encouraged me to like get out of my comfort zone, try to figure out how to keep pushing myself to be bigger, better. It's not necessarily comfortable to be comfortable because then you don't go anywhere. So I try to look at art like that is so beyond my comprehension that, I aspire to at least try to work in a way that,
do something that kind of scares you a little bit.
Yeah. If there's no, some sort of feeling coming from it, it's just like you could paint it in your sleep. That's boring. You're not really going to impress anyone doing that either.
Yeah. I know we're all living in such it feels like a uncertain time at the moment. We're quarantined to our house. Hopefully if you can stay home. We're not really sure when this is all going to be behind us, if ever. How has this changed or impacted you on how you live? Like me, when I'm not working, I feel I'm very much an introvert. Like I do not mind being home. I love being home with my wife and my baby girl, doing odd chores around the house. All of those boxes seem to have been checked now, and so now I'm just like, what do I do? So we're just kind of creating new things to do. Is this pushing you to do the same? Are you feeling the need to continue to create? Are you using this time to sit down and pick up a paintbrush? I know you just completed, this latest show. Are you working on the next show, or are you just taking some time?
Yeah, I do have another show coming up, so I have that sort of in the back of my mind, and I've been doing my little doodles, sketches, and sort of throwing ideas out there. But it's been a weird experience because I started this show really officially 2 years ago, like really putting time into the paintings. It's such a bizarre coincidence that right as my opening comes, we are on mandatory lockdown. And even leading up to the opening, we knew things were changing and people were getting sick, and all of our governments were trying to figure things out. And so the gallery had said, well, let's just go ahead because we can always do appointments and people can come in and see the work. And then this way it's not a large crowd, but people will still get to see the work. And then right before the show opened, they're like, mandatory quarantine. No one can go anywhere.
Yeah.
Which is a non-essential business. And so I think because I have these experiences with my shows, and there's the fun part, which is starting the show and sort of develop everything. And then there's the real long haul, which is the middle part of putting all the time into the work and the isolation and not getting out. And, I typically I'll wake up at 7 in the morning and I'll start working at around 8:30, and I'll work until 7 o'clock at night. So my days are filled working, and I'm not, sometimes I don't even go out for a week where I'm like, oh, it's Saturday, I got to get out of the house. I need.
Right.
So I've had this really intensive 6 months leading up to the show, isolation and working, because I knew I had to hit my deadlines. And now I'm on mandatory isolation. And so I'm trying to wrap my head around. I didn't have the experience of having the official opening and having the celebration
Yeah.
and seeing my friends again and conversing with people and meeting new people and talking about the art. And so I'm in this really weird lull. I don't really, like, some days I feel like, oh, I'll just start a new painting. And then there's other days where I don't want to get out of bed because I feel like something's missing. And also too, you know, we're in isolation. We're sort of taking ourselves away from what's really happening. We don't see it. So it's almost like a weird, like, it all seems so surreal to me that there's people dying out there, and there's these people, these heroes putting themselves in the mix to try to save people's lives. It's just, it's so surreal to me that this is happening in our times.
I know.
You know?
It's just so, you know, it's just so devastating. My God.
It really is. And,
you know, I used to just be on the news 24/7, you know, getting all of the updates. I'll wake up in the middle of the night and see what's going on in Spain and Italy and, you know, what their updates are because, you know, they're slightly ahead of where we are. And so it's like looking into sort of like a crystal ball in a way of what's to come. And it's just so fucking sad and
really
unfair. And, but, you know, the only thing I think any of us can do is just try to step back and, just love one another and, you know, stay safe and
try to help.
Stay home and try to help.
It, not.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, don't be a part of the problem.
Yeah,
it is hard. It is hard to feel creative right now because usually I'll take some time off after a show and I'll go somewhere in nature, always, you know, sort of decompress and fulfill, get that feeling back, that energy back. And I haven't been able to do that. So, but I have started paintings. I think I've probably started 3 paintings. Whether they go into this next show or not, they're just things that are in me that want to come out. And I think they're related to these feelings I'm having. And they're sort of based on gravity and the effects of gravity. And I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like there's this social conscious awareness happening and everyone's really supporting everybody. And it feels really good. I feel like, you know, for a while, everyone was so separate in their, you know, this is me, this is mine. You know, everybody was sort of separated from each other. And it takes something massive like this to make you realize, well, we're all humans. We're here for each other. We can't get by unless we are here for each other. And so I'm gravitating towards that feeling and helping, you know, hoping that fuels my creativity. But it is hard. It's hard to get back into that, you know, back into work because I just want to get out and play.
You. Yeah, I feel you. Oh my God. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know when I'm going to be, you know, going back to a set. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon, you know.
I know.
Probably not until, I'm thinking probably, you know, early next year.
After the, like the fall and the winter season.
Yeah, yeah. I just don't know if like big sets are going to be coming back together. It's an interesting world, but, you know, I think we need to, if there's any sort of silver lining, you know, it's our responsibility to try to hold on to whatever that silver lining is within your own world and don't let it go. You know, mine would be this rare time to take a pause and be with my wife and baby girl. You know, my little one's just so happy to have both of her parents with her 24/7, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I know you are using some of this time to create a little bit. And thank you so much for talking to me for so long. I promise I'm going to wrap this up very soon. But what's your process like? I know you said you wake up, in the morning, you're awake for an hour or so, and then you start working, and you could possibly work throughout the, the entire day. Do you listen to music? Is it silence? Do you need to be alone? Can you have conversations while you're painting? What's sort of the vibe?
Yeah, well, so I wake up, it's not always easy just immediately getting into that flow.
Mm-hmm.
And I do listen to a lot of music, but it's sort of old-timey music. Like I really love like orchestral music or things that are complicated and have a lot of pieces. And I don't know, there's something about old like movie soundtracks that are like really high production where I can get lost in one or two, like maybe it's the string section or whatever it is, but I can get lost in that and something sort of happens to me where I'm hearing it and I think I'm tapping into something emotional and I can envision things. And so that really helps me when I'm needing to be inspired. But then there's also times where I have a hard time with music because then I really feel the sense of isolation. Like I feel so alone. I just need voices around me. I need to feel like I have people around me. And so I'll turn on a podcast, or I'm really obsessed with Dateline. I love a good murder mystery.
Yeah.
And so I will put that on and it'll be in the background and I can listen. But I also love documentaries and things like that. And I'm just trying to educate myself while I'm working. But I do have a hard time if people are around. I want to converse because I'm so used to being isolated.
That makes sense.
Somebody's here. I just want to talk.
Yeah.
And I can't do two things at once. It's like my hand gets cut off when my voice is engaging. And I know some people can do that. They can just sit and chat and work, but for whatever reason, I cannot do that. But
I can totally understand that. I love when you post your close-up shots of the detailed work of your pieces. Like in the simple song, this painting that I have hanging above the fireplace, everyone that walks into the house comments on the detail of the carpet.
Oh,
they
that carpet.
Cannot believe that it's paint. And the detail is so, you must have been using such a fine tip brush.
Yeah, I do. I use tiny brushes.
And just took you weeks and weeks and months just to do the carpet, So I'm just so amazed, your just attention to detail.
Oh, I love
the
that.
time you take and your sweaters and just everything. It's just so.
Yeah,
really
what's great
so
about
beautiful.
that is that I know that I can. It's almost like you go into autopilot. Like if you're driving and you realize, oh, I've just traveled 20 miles. I didn't even realize. Things like that will happen to me when I work on these little tiny details where it's repetitive and it feels like an out-of-body experience where I know, okay, every so often I'm going to be hitting a little bit of paint here and a little bit of paint there, or I'm going to, be crossing over this way. And to me, those are some of the funnest times in painting because I don't really have to think and I can just go into this really dream state and let my hand do all the work. And I think like with the sweater, the fabrics, or I like to do tapestry or something, it has a way of allowing itself to pop up from the two-dimensional. So when I'm done, it's like, oh yeah, that's so fulfilling visually for me. But also it didn't really take a lot of effort, which is such a nice thing. You just go into this really creative zone and just let your hands do all the work.
Wow. I mean, I should just end it there. Beautiful. I loved this talk. I had a couple other, but I think that's so nice. If you could describe your worlds, your paintings, your masterpieces that you create, to people that don't know your work, in 3 words, would that even be possible?
Oh my God, I don't even know. You know what? I have the hardest time describing when I'm introduced to someone who doesn't know me or my work and they say this is an artist and someone says, oh, what do you paint?
Mm-hmm.
I really don't know how to describe it. I don't know if it fits. I mean, it's narrative.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from a sort of need for escaping.
Mm.
I really don't know how.
I mean, those are
I don't know.
pretty. You're killing it so far. Yeah. It's good.
No, I mean, I really enjoyed this conversation. I don't, it's weird with me, because of who I am, I feel like I'm a very quiet person and I don't find it really easy to talk about the work. And I feel like maybe if it was a total stranger, I would have more, I wouldn't really worry about what they think. And obviously with you, I'm super inspired by you, but this has been a really great conversation. I think you've really pulled some stuff out of me, because it really isn't easy to talk about my paintings. That's why I started painting, because I was a quiet child. And so this second half of it, having to verbally share, has always been really hard for me. But this conversation is just like hanging out with an old friend.
No,
and, yeah.
Well, we
talking
are.
art.
We are. Yeah, no, it's good. Well, hey, Lola, I love you. You are the absolute best. And
I love you too, Aaron. I'm so lucky.
So happy. Oh, I'm so lucky. I'm so happy we were able to we were able to do this. It's nice just to talk to one of my favorite artists about her journey.